modified crescent pose and why. And then we'll put together a little flow sequence to go with that. Typically in a crescent pose, crescent lunge, crescent warrior, here are different names for it. We have the back leg straight, ball the back foot, front knee bent roughly 90 degrees, and when we come up, what you'll start to notice is that when the leg bone goes back into extension of the hip, we go into hip extension, the pelvis will start to tilt forward, coming into an anterior pelvic tilt. Now this anterior pelvic tilt does two things typically for most bodies. One, it splays the ribs and disengages the transverse abs, the most important muscle to stabilize the spine and the pelvis. And secondly, when we go into that extension and anterior pelvic tilt, we typically will find extension through the spine, usually in the lumbar and lower thoracic spine. So then there's a compensation, and whenever there's a compensation, over time, that can lead to injury. So what we're doing with the bent knee crescent lunge is modifying it in a way that levels the pelvis, stabilizes everything, keeps us engaged in the core, keeps us upright in the spine. From there, we can start to create other movements and maybe even go into the straight back leg. Okay, so what I'll have you start off in is a runner's lunge position. So from our plank, down dog, stepping forward to runner's lunge. I like to go toes to thumb. And I've got this runner's lunge position. Now I'll begin by bending my back knee. Now what I'll do also is I'll take that back foot and bring it forward just about an inch, not a whole lot. And then as I bend, my tailbone tucks under, posterior pelvic tilt. From there, I begin to pull my hip points up toward my ribs, and you can see the curling into my back. As I do that, I pull up, and I get my pelvis to be neutral with that tailbone tuck, reaching the knee toward the floor. Now you'll notice the knees kind of wobble possibly, so working on stabilizing the knees using the outer hip. Pulling the lower ribs in. I like to start with the arms in front, like we're holding a block. And then keeping the ribs drawn in and the lats and pecs engaged, we can bring the arms up overhead. From this space, we can begin to straighten the front leg. Now here, we're focusing on inner thigh, squaring of the hips, right quadricep, left glute engagement, and again, everything staying in center and engaged to the core, center line. From there, we can start to move with it a little bit. I'm going to exhale, bend the front knee and lean. Now that back leg can be straight because my pelvis is naturally tilted forward a little bit. So it stays neutral with that back leg straight. I want my lats to engage and my triceps spreading across the front of the chest. I'll re-bend the back knee as I rise, like I'm holding a block over top, pulling the lower ribs in, tailbone tucking under. We can add a twist to this, twisting, really reaching, feeling that left front hand, shoulder blade spread and reach. I can rise up to center again, inhale, breath, and then we can find the flow from there. Exhale, bend and sweep. Bend the back knee, inhale, rise. Exhale, twist. Come to center, inhale, stabilize under thighs. Exhale, bend and sweep. And then you can repeat and repeat. With the idea that the anterior tilt of the pelvis is what we're avoiding by bending the back knee. Eventually, when you feel super engaged and locked in this space, we can then begin to straighten into the back leg, deepening the stretch of the psoas. And that's a progressive thing. We don't jump right into it until we can learn to stabilize the pelvis using the transverse abs. All right, hopefully that was helpful for everyone. Modified crescent lunge.